What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Reignmakers Fantasy Golf Show presented by DraftKings Reignmakers. We got a fun show today. Going to be talking about the Wyndham Championship. Also, going to jump in and dive into the details of the playoff set, these playoff contests that are coming to DraftKings starting next week with the first FedEx Cup playoff event for the top 70 golfers in the FedEx Cup rankings. I think there's some interesting nuances amongst the pricing of the playoff set. I know there's still a lot of unopened packs and packs that will get opened over the course of the next week or so. I think pricing is very interesting to talk through, so we'll go through some of that. But first, I do have to pick a bone with the chat. JM's over there in the chat from Stogie and Josh Allen, our two most loyal listeners. Bones to pick with you guys. I listened back to the Monday show. Of course, on Monday, I was solo. I didn't have TJ alongside me. And my goodness, my audio was horrific. So I apologize for some poor audio quality from this week's show. I am double checking right now as we speak to make sure that my audio is coming from the mic. If my audio isn't clean, definitely DM or hit the chat and let me know. But man, that was pretty hard to listen to. So I apologize for some poor audio quality last episode. Usually we're all over that between TJ and myself, double and triple checking each other because everyone knows it's practically impossible to listen to a poor audio podcast. So I apologize for that first and foremost. So we're going to go back through some of the thoughts, some of the things we said on Monday's show. Of course, Wyndham Championship week, and it's put up or shut up time this week. Stogie says, don't recall any issues. Maybe it was just the translation over to the podcast feed on Spotify. But yeah, it was pretty rough. So I apologize. But yeah, it is put up or shut up week this week for the Wyndham Championship. A few big names outside of the top 70 and outside of the FedEx Cup playoffs, none bigger than Justin Thomas, who is out there saying that he wants to make a miraculous playoff run, needs a top 15 finish in order to get into the top 70. Several other guys not in the top 70 playing this week, including our very own Adam Scott, who we talk about on this show pretty much every week. Adam Scott has had what I would call a pretty solid, what it felt like a pretty solid season, but sitting outside of the top 70, needs to move up several places from 80 or so into the top 70. Going to need what looks like a possible top 10 finish from a guy like Adam Scott. A couple other big names outside, Shane Lowry in the field this week. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these guys are able to move up and if they're able to move up and get into the playoffs. Of course, the playoff set has all of these guys in it. I think Justin Thomas is one of the most interesting guys in the playoff set. His price is quite elevated right now. Just pulled some of the low asks, but his price is like $10. You could sell a Justin Thomas who might not even get into the playoffs and buy yourselves almost straight up a Nick Taylor, who else is around that $10 mark? I think I saw someone who I talked about on this show a lot, a Taylor Moore for $12. Taylor Moore ranked 28th in the FedEx Cup Plus, guaranteed to play at least one event, probably two events. And if he plays well, all three events. And the prizing coming out of DraftKings for these playoff events is quite interesting, quite fun. We're going to dive into all the details there. Of course, we're going to talk through your questions. We're going to talk through all of the things. First and foremost, going to bring up our site. On Monday's show, I usually never share screen, try to make it audio friendly. But on Wednesday's show, as always, I'll go through our site, otmnft.com, build my lineups or showcase the lineups that I've already previously built because I do want to cover playoffs all in this show. So we'll go through the tools, go through some of the lineups, some of the guys that I like, and then, of course, jump into talking about the playoffs. All right, here we go. Let's share this. There's Justin Thomas right there. Another interesting angle in all of the conversation around the playoff set and the playoffs coming up is if you can get out from underneath an asset that is like a rare Justin Thomas or an elite, even an elite Justin Thomas, and double down and reinvest some of the money from some sales into some of this playoff set. I do think it's a very interesting angle to take for those of you who are kind of preserving a budget or trying to operate within a budget. For me, I ripped open 2 playoff packs, and I've been trying to essentially think about curating my collection some and then doubling down into some of these playoff assets that can be used not only in these gated playoff sets, but then also in the fall swing, and then also into 2024. We got recent news from DraftKings this week that 2023 cards will have a place in the 2024 Reignmakers PGA game. Not sure of all of the details there and exactly what prizing is going to be dedicated to that. But we saw them do this in football. We're now seeing and getting some information that they're going to do it in PGA. So I do think it should be quite interesting to, at a minimum, hang on to some of these assets that you think will be valuable and fun to play. That is one angle that I'm taking on these playoff contests is how am I going to enjoy the 3 weeks of playoff contests the most? Of course, you want to have a lineup in these contests. And the best way to think about getting a lineup in the Tour Championship is going with some sort of captain anchor, a Rory, a Scotty, a Rahm, and then filling out and maybe making some interesting and key purchases here several weeks ahead of the Tour Championship on guys. And spoiler alert, just picked up myself a Brian Harman. Brian Harman sitting there at 7th in FedEx Cup rankings at $19, $19.99 low ask for Brian Harman. Almost assuredly going to play 2 events. I think pretty much going to play, unless he somehow plays horrible in the first 2 events, should basically play all 3 playoff events. So going to be a guy who you can get into a lineup 3 weeks in a row, provide some solid utility and looking to claw back, not all that much money. When you look at the breakdown of pricing here for the playoff set, I think it is very, very interesting. $50,000 for the FedEx St. Jude and 500 of these playoff packs, of which they were $100 a piece. $100,000 in the BMW Championship. And we'll only have 50 golfers in this BMW Championship and 500 playoff packs, and then $200,000 Tour Championship, $50,000 to first place in this Tour Championship event. Don't care what you say. I think $50,000 first place prize is a heck of a prize to play for. Should be incredibly fun. You can find all this information at the DraftKings link here. Let me zoom in, show the breakdown of the prices and the places paid of the payouts. So in week 1, the FedEx St. Jude, $5,000 to first, pretty flat payouts, 5,000, 2,000, 1,000 for the top 3. In the second playoff event, double the prize pool from $50K to $100K, $20K up top, 10 to second, 5 to third. Obviously, when you get $20K up top, you're going to see some steep jumps in terms of payouts, but I do think it's a really fun event to be eyeing the top prize. And then they double the prize pool again. Also go from 70 golfers in the FedEx St. Jude here down to 50 golfers in the BMW Championship. So certainly less entries, paying out a total of $13.99. This is a rare contest. So I think using the rare, trying to think about the number of entries in DraftKings every week, the rare contest. Now, remember, these are full field events. You're getting 8K lineups in this. So it's going to be 70 guys, half the amount of guys in these playoff contests, also gated only to the playoff set. I have to think there's only going to be 4,000 lineups. If I'm thinking of this correctly, 4,000 lineups in this contest, maybe a little bit more. Hard to know exactly, but I think if you think about the number of lineups in these contests and then the payouts here, where it's going, all the way down to 1,800 in the first event, the FedEx St. Jude, to 1,300 in the second event, and then 1,000 in this third event. 1031 in this third event. I think there's going to be some good opportunities to claw back some solid investment here and chase down some massive prize amounts. 50 grand is something that, if you're like me playing mostly rare and elites, we've not seen a $50,000 prize pool or a $50,000 singular payout. So a really fun event to try to chase it down. And of course, there's going to be guys out there that just have the top of the board. They're going to have, if you look at the FedEx Cup rankings, they're going to have Aram, Scheffler, Rory, and then two other guys. Victor Hovland seems pretty popular in terms of pricing. Maybe you get a guy like Harman or Wyndham Clark. Maybe you go down a little bit further and you go to somebody like a Cantlay who's fallen down, Tom Kim, who's a little bit hot. So I think there's going to be a lot of overlap in lineups, but I don't think it takes all that much to get different. And I think that is going to be some of the most interesting things to look at. So I am going to dive more into my thoughts on playoffs, but I want to circle back to the Wyndham this week first. So let's take a look at the odds board. Go to the players page here on our site, otmnft.com. Of course, you'll see the odds and the players at the top of the field. We talked about the top three guys here this week on Monday. Hideki, Russell Henley, who's jumped up in to the second spot from the third or fourth spot initially when odds first came out, and Sungjae Im. Most of the conversation is around Hideki and Sungjae. Hideki just doesn't have the best course history here. I have some Hideki in my portfolio. I'll be locking some Hideki into my lineups, but definitely a little more hesitant than most. I think he's been playing some really good golf. Still think he's one of the best iron players in the world, top 10 for sure, in my opinion, in the world. The Wyndham is a shorter course where accuracy is paramount and iron play is going to be really, really favored and leaned on in order to succeed around here. But the course history to me is one of those sticky course history numbers. It's one of those places where if you play well, you always seem to kind of come back here. You always seem to play well here. You like the way the setup is. So I think there's some sticky course history numbers here. Just seeing Stogie in the chat here. Max lineups in first playoff gated contest would be 7,405, assuming that's every card used. So I appreciate the math. I did not get this far, but I do want to dive into the details. One, will every pack get opened? Two, will every card get used? I don't think so. So let's assume there's roughly 7,000 lineups out there. And we'll talk more in the second half of the show about playoffs, but I appreciate this math here. So yeah, I think it's a sticky course from a course history standpoint. And Sungjae Im, sitting here with 0 Sungjae Im in my collection, but Sungjae Im has great course history here. He's looking to get back into some sort of form that he was in the beginning of the season, even into the middle of the season. Honestly, it's really only been 4 to 5 weeks, I think, of Sungjae Im play that has been what I'll call less than stellar. Actually, want to look some Sungjae up here and see when this slide started. What do we got here? I'm not the best at spelling Sungjae's first name. Sungjae. Okay. So we basically went miscut at the 3M, T20 at the Open, miscut at the Renaissance, T24 at Detroit, T29, TPC River Highlands, missed the cut at the US Open. Yeah, so it's been a while. It's been since mid-May when Sungjae has had a top 10 finish. But in general, Sungjae is one of those golfers who has one of the most elite all-around skill sets in the world. Certainly can coming back to a place like the Wyndham where he's comfortable, looking simply to improve on his current position, which is already pretty strong from a playoff standpoint. Sanjay didn't fall very far in this 6 to 8 week stretch. Fallen from what was 20th in the FedEx Cup ranking down to 37th. So certainly going to play next week. Has a really good chance to play the BMW if he continues to play well the next 2 weeks. Back at a course that he certainly really likes. His history around here is pretty unrivaled. Second last year, 24th the year before that, 9th in 2020, and 6th in 2019. So 3 of the last 4 years in the top 10 here. Just think, if you look at just that information, just that data, I think you can ignore a lot of the current noise around Sanjay, and he feels like a pretty strong play at plus 22 to 1, plus 2,200 here. So I do like Sanjay. I don't have any in my portfolio. I'm not going to rush out to grab some Sanjay, but in just kind of surveying the landscape of this field, looking at Henley, looking at Matsuyama, looking at Sanjay, I like Sungjae a good bit here, and maybe I get a little exposure to him in DFS, or maybe a little bit of exposure in the betting outright market. I do think it's a very interesting betting board. Listened to several podcasts, and it's been the first time in over a month where we're seeing guys at the top of the board be 18, 19, 20 to 1. We're used to Scotty or Rahm or Rory being in the field and us getting some absurd betting numbers to win golf tournaments. Hell, is as low as like 4 to 1, 4.5 to 1, upwards of a normal price of like 8 to 1 to win a golf tournament. Now, all of a sudden, the top of the board is 18 to 1, 19 to 1, 20 to 1. So certainly a lot more disparity in this field, and sort of anyone's ball game if you kind of like look at the numbers and look what it's trying to tell you. So yeah, I think if I were objectively not looking at my own portfolio and I needed to pick one of Hideki, Henley, and Sanjay, I'd be all over Sanjay this week. So unfortunately for me, not gonna have any Sanjay, but I am gonna have some Siwoo Kim, who is another guy who has some solid history here, who plays Donald Ross courses pretty well, and I like Siwoo. I like Siwoo's upside in just about any instance, as you guys know, sort of a Siwoo Kim stan. But in general, I really like Siwoo here. He hasn't made a ton of noise recently, so I'm looking for Siwoo to get back on track. And then you've got the guys that are kind of chasing Shane Lowry, Adam Scott, and Justin Thomas. I think those are the 3 biggest names who need a solid performance this week, need a top 10 performance, want to be in the mix on Sunday. First and foremost, they got to make the cut. I think with a made cut from these 3, I think we could see some fireworks on Saturday. You could see these guys just loosen up, fire at most any flag that they possibly can, and we could see some really, really low numbers. So it'll be interesting to see how history, pedigree, and their determination to march through a little bit of a slump, get into this top 70 and open themselves up for a heck of a 3-week run in the playoffs. But I think those are the 3 biggest names that have something to prove this week. So I think all of them are viable. I frankly just am out on Justin Thomas. I can't buy into the narrative of him doing everything right in the media, but just not being able to find his game. Could he find his game? Absolutely. But I just think, if I was pulling JT playoff cards, I would be selling them for 10, $11. I'd be even taking the high offer, which I think was $8 or $9. And I'd just be reinvesting it into guys that I know are going to give me utility. For Justin Thomas to come in and finish T15 here, I think is still somewhat of a stretch based on how he is currently performing on the course. And it's been long enough to know that he's definitely going through it. So I'm much more inclined to play Shane Lowry or an Adam Scott than a JT this week. That's just me. But I do think it's interesting to see a guy with the determination that he has. He obviously wants to be on the Ryder Cup team. I think if he makes the playoffs, he's certainly on the Ryder Cup team. So he's just looking to make the cut and then fire a couple of low numbers on Saturday and Sunday and see where the chips fall. Should be quite interesting to watch. One guy that's talked about and tweeted about the most I've ever seen him tweeted about or talked about this week is Aaron Rye at plus 40, plus 4,000 here. DK Rainmakers price 220 for core, $7 for rare. I think the $7 rare price is pretty fair. What I am like thinking about in terms of Aaron Rye is, again, it's going to be a playoff show. Where does he sit playoff wise? So if you think about where he's at, Aaron Rye's at 62. So he's in next week, but he still needs to perform. It's still possible that he has a pretty poor performance this week and a couple of guys jump him. Now, will he miss next week? It's quite difficult to know and predict. He would need, 8 guys who are not in to then get in. Guys like Austin Eckroat, Cam Davis, Garrett Higo, KH Lee, Shane Lowry, Justin Thomas. He would need, all of these guys or 8 of these guys to really play quite well, and him to play pretty bad to not play next week. Is it possible? Certainly. But I like Aaron Rye's individual round upside. And for me, it's like he can go really low. I talked about this on Monday. He can go really low, but then he seems to always kind of come back to the mean. So it's not that I don't like Aaron Rye. We've been on Aaron Rye a good bit this year. I've talked about him a lot on this show. I wrote him up multiple times this season when he was a bit deeper odds. I just think plus 40 is 40 to 1, plus 4,000 is an interesting number for somebody like Rye. I'm more interested in a Jaeger and a Hadwin at this price from a betting standpoint. But I do think that there are a lot of sharp people out there, sharp DFS players, sharp bettors that are all over Aaron Rye. And when that's the case, you have to pay attention. You have to dial in. You have to really try to look at the information and the numbers. And a lot of the data points to the fact that there's 2 things here. 1, Rye's a very accurate driver of the golf ball. And 2, he's quite good with his mid and short irons. And, at Sedgefield, you're going to have 125 to 175 yards a lot of the time. These par 4s play very similar distance wise. If you can hit the ball in the fairway, you're going to have a mid iron or even a short iron at times into these greens, and you're going to need to make birdies. So, I think when you need to make birdies, the question, or most of the questions that I've seen asked about Aaron Rye is, can the putter stay hot enough to win on the PGA Tour? Certainly it can, but, and as we know, putting in general, pretty variant stat with its ups and downs, and Rye seems to get hot and then kind of goes away. So I do think it'll be very interesting to keep an eye on Aaron Rye this week. But it's worth noting on this show because almost everybody that I follow tweeting about it, talking about Aaron Rye on the shows, and just about every bet card that I've seen out there has a little bit of Aaron Rye. I've seen bet cards as deep as 55 to 1, and he's all the way down at 40 to 1 here. So I think it's very interesting to see those movements in the marketplace. And another guy, while we're talking about kind of movements in the odds board, another guy with some serious movement on him is more at the top of the board is Siwoo Kim. He was moving all around from like plus 30 to plus 18 to plus 22 now. So he's definitely a little all over the place. But again, I try to follow some of that movement because I think that when you see guys jumping on certain numbers, it is indicative of sharp bettors and indicative of steam. And I think Siwoo is the kind of guy who certainly has winning upside on the PGA Tour, but in this field specifically has a lot of winning upside. So those 2 guys to me are 2 of the guys where the odds number is something that is very interesting and has been a very interesting sort of ride this week in terms of the number of people talking about them, betting them, and putting them on their cards. All right. Want to get into your questions, but I do want to go through my lineups. Of course, on our site, you can take a look at your collection. I continue to add to the collection as I'm trying to trim it down all at the same time. It's been a little bit of a challenge, but I do think this playoff set is going to help me to take some offers, to liquidate some of the portfolio, because I do want to be in on the playoff contest. I do think they're going to be quite fun. I don't want to ignore the standard contests that are going to be out there, but I do want to make sure I have at least one lineup or two lineups in each one of the playoff contests over the course of the next 3 weeks. I think it'll be quite fun. So you can take a look at your cards. We don't have the playoff filter on here just yet. We have a few other things in the works, but shout out to Neil for all the hard work that he's doing out there. We will be trying to get something in terms of the playoff filter on the site as quickly as we can. Well, let's go into the lineup builder. My lineups for the week, and actually just helped somebody else through this in our Discord. It is by far the best tool that we have on the site. It's the singular best way and thing that DraftKings has done to make Reignmakers better to play is to be able to enter your contest more quickly. In the beginning of the season, when you needed to be on the DraftKings app and enter them one by one, it was quite a tedious process, even if you only had 10, 15 lineups. I think the most lineups I've ever had is like 25 lineups. And my goodness, I can only imagine needing to do 25 lineups manually. Just so much easier to be able to move all of your cards around on our site, be able to select the contest you want them to go into. Come down here, click that export button, click the link to DraftKings here and upload them right into DraftKings. One thing that where people were getting some challenges, make sure you're entering them into the Reignmakers contest. You got to go Reignmakers and then contests and then upcoming, you'll find the bulk entry upload tool. You'll be able to bulk enter your lineups and then double check your lineups just to make sure they all went through. You get a success message on each one of your successful lineups. But it's definitely been the most important Reignmakers tool to date thus far, in my opinion, to streamline what is entering contests. All right. Let's jump into my teams. Been fun the last couple of weeks. So 2 weeks in a row with my best elite team making a run, finishing in the top 30 the last couple of weeks for $500 scores, continuing to claw back that investment. I am almost break even. We're at the end of the season where we have these big playoff events, but we also have 9 other events coming after the playoffs. So it should be a really fun rest of the calendar here, getting really close to that black number in the green or the black for those of you out there tracking it. And yeah, reinvesting some of those profits into the playoff packs, into the playoff market, and trying to enjoy Reignmakers for the rest of the year, which I think should be really fun. Let's hope we can keep the streak going of cashing. So I'll talk through my top couple of lineups here. I'll talk through the top 2 because last week it was the secondary lineup of Poston and Grillo doing their thing and essentially cashing. It was one guy, Grayson Sig, missing the cut, only getting 4 or 5, but still able to stay near the top of the board last week. So I do think that is very interesting when we get these cuts where some big names miss and some higher percentage owned guys miss. You can still run up the board or at least hold a strong position with someone like the winner or a good strong captain in the top 3. So I do think even if you only end up with 4 out of the 5, you can still have yourself a heck of a weekend sweat here if you've got the right captain. And in Reignmakers, it always comes down to the captain. If you lose your captain or if your captain isn't going to perform, it's going to be quite hard to win. That extra half of a point that you're getting on every point scored certainly makes such a big difference. So I talked about it top of the show. Don't essentially love Hideki's course history, but we play with what we have. We stick to the portfolio that we've built over time. We don't make any rash decisions here, especially with the playoffs upon us, and especially because they've got the new playoff set now. There's plenty of decisions to make there, and I think there's some more edge in the playoff market and pricing versus the your traditional Reignmakers market, even from elites and rares for what will be the playoff events. But we got Hideki, Adam Scott, JT Poston, elites in this top lineup. Just think Hideki is better than Adam Scott, is better than JT Poston. I think his recent form is better. I think he has more upside. So we're going upside here. Hideki is my captain. Adam Scott, JT Poston round out those second 2 positions. And then we've got Russell Henley and Siwoo Kim. Pretty chalky lineup. Pretty much most of the guys at the top And quite frankly, I'm okay with that this week. I think there will be plenty of differentiation. I think when the betting market starts at 18 to 1, and you got, uh, good, solid players all the way down to like plus 4,000, plus 5,000 to 1. I think you can be pretty quote unquote chalky, or pretty much just use the top of the odds board. So I like Russell Henley's course history a lot. I like Henley on short courses. Think he plays really well here. And we've talked about my thoughts on Siwoo Kim and the upside that he has. So yeah, let's go this week. Huge top line. I've felt honestly very confident in the top lineups that I've been able to build over the course of the last month and a half. And it's been really fun just coming in, making your best lineup, putting that in that top contest, and giving yourself a fun sweat. Sometimes it goes well, and other times it hasn't. But to me, I do like that part of Rainmakers. It takes some of the tediousness of the decision making out of it, where I'm just playing the best cards that I have in the portfolio, and we've been playing long enough this year to know that variance is a thing. And if the golf gods lean our way, if we get enough breaks, 5 of 5, just looking for a weekend sweat. And I think we can get that out of this top team, and even possibly this second team: Adam Svensson, Adam Schenk, Grayson Sig elites. I like Svensson here, not only because of odds, but because of where he sits playoff wise. Needs a good performance. Think he's due for one. Adam Svensson, when he plays well, strikes the ball very well, hits his irons very well. So I think this course should set up pretty well for him. I like Adam Schenk a good bit as well. This was a sort of a 1-2 decision here in terms of captain. Landed on Svensson for me, but I like Schenk a good bit. Sig, I'm just going back to the well on Grayson Sig. I have a couple other elite options that are worse odds than him: Carl Yuan, Kevin Roy, Dylan Fratelli. So I'm just going back to the well on Grayson Sig. Obviously missed the cut last week, which wasn't great for me, but has been playing fairly decent golf as of recent. Not going to let one miscut deter me. So go back to the well on Grayson Sig. And then Alex Smalley, Adam Hadwin. I really liked both of these guys. Talked about a lot across the industry this week. Adam Hadwin coming off a miscut last week. So a lot of people maybe not on Hadwin this week, but I think this course sets up well for Hadwin. Accuracy, iron play, putter. I think he can do it all. And Alex Smalley has been really solid with showing some elite winning upside as well in his play as of late. Gaining a ton ball striking, gaining a ton on approach. So you're going to need to play well with those irons this week. Gonna need to give yourself a lot of birdie looks, and gonna need the putter to cooperate. So those are my top 2 teams this week. I am always, as you guys can see, playing my best rares up in the elite contests. It's just the way my portfolio is set up. It's just the way that I enjoy playing the most. 75K guaranteed cash. I really think the elite contests, at least for PGA Tour this year, were the sweet spot. They were the most heavily loaded with the prizes. They were the most balanced. When DraftKings extended the min cash, I think it was a really nice percentage payout standpoint in terms of like in the money percentage. I think the EV was there. So it's been my favorite tier to play at. It's been my favorite contest, that guaranteed cash line contest. And then second to that has been any of like the rare gated stuff. Of course, when I've been able to get into the elite gated, that has been quite solid. I haven't ran very well when I was able to get into the elite gated, and it was only a couple of weeks, but I have done fairly well in the rare gated. Those have been really fun contests to sweat. I think usually somewhere around 700-800 people end up in those rare gated contests. We don't have any gated contests this week. We'll have all the gated contests for playoffs next week. But yeah, in terms of like order of having fun, it's been elite guaranteed, rare, and elite gated, and then rare guaranteed for me. I haven't played pack party. I have played a little rare single entry. I actually think we'll go through. Did I build a rare single entry team this week? I did build one rare single entry team this week. So I have been playing a little more rare single entry. I like this 1.5K to first. When you look at the 2K to first cash line for the guaranteed contest, of course, you need to beat more lineups here, and the single entry need to beat less teams. You still need to have some solid upside. And you're looking to finish first in this single entry contest because of how heavy the first place payout is. But I do think it's a pretty fun contest to be in terms of sweating it. And you guys know on Monday I talked about I really like sweating the contests. I think it's part of the fun for me. It's part of why I play. I don't really play professionally for money or anything like that. I play to enjoy the golf. I play to add some excitement into the golf and into my life. So I really enjoy sweating the contest. So to me, sweating that rare single entry, and shout out to you guys in chat, shout out Stogie, shout out others that have that have pushed me to look into the single entries. I've really enjoyed the sweat that the single entry contests produce. I think the ownership ends up being quite interesting in these single entry contests. So it's been pretty fun in those contests. So we'll talk through my rare team here. Shank, Woodland. I'm back on the Woodland train here. Gary needs a strong performance. I'm just looking up. I forget exactly where he's at. Certainly outside the playoffs right now. I think he's around 100. Yeah, 98th right now. So, I mean, Woodland's looking at needing a win in order to get into the playoffs. Missed the cut last week. But I do think he can fare well here. Woodland's usually a little bit better on courses that where distance is a little bit more important. Here, accuracy is everything. But I like Gary to bounce back after a pretty rough miscut last week. So look for that. And then Alex Noren, Dylan Wu, my guy Dylan Wu. I can't say enough about Dylan Wu. I will say this: if you're out there playing DFS, Dylan Wu has got to be one of the most disrespected golfers on the PGA Tour all season long. I think his price hasn't risen anywhere near 8K, and all he's done is play fairly well. And I have looked at his results. He certainly has his fair share of missed cuts, but man, Dylan Wu, definitely pretty solid fantasy point scorer. I think he's pretty disrespected. He's all the way down at 7K this week. So if you're a DFS player, take a look at Dylan Wu, and then playing up a core card, obviously, as always, playing up in these contests that need ceiling, that need upside, playing up all of my cores here. Give myself a Sam Burns in this lineup. Sam, maybe a little sneaky this week. Not many people talking about Sam Burns. Burns maybe looking for a little tune-up. I'm actually not 100% sure why Burns is in the field this week. I think it's quite interesting. And I don't know, some of these guys play these events because they're sponsors or they're trying to get sponsors. I'm not exactly sure why Sam Burns is in the field. Maybe he had already committed to this event and I just didn't pick up on that. But he's 20th right now in FedEx Cup ranking. He certainly doesn't need to play. He certainly will be playing next week. Maybe he's a little sneaky this week. Not many people betting him. If we look back at the players, where's his odds at actually? Yeah, 28-1 on a guy like Sam Burns in this field feels pretty solid, quite frankly. I feel like I'm honestly missing something. So let's take a look at Burns real quick here. Let's see what I might be missing. I missed the cut at the Open. I mean, if you listen to any other shows, listen to other sharp guys, just generally thinking, if you think logically, you play the PGA Tour, it's a pretty standard set of golf courses, some shorter, some longer, some Bermuda grass, some Paspalum, some POA, in terms of like agriculture setup, course design. It's pretty similar. Then all of a sudden you go play the Open Championship in wind, rain, link style course that you've just never played. It's just very difficult to like really take, the Open not with a grain of salt. So to me, a miscut at the Open, I just kind of taking it as a grain of salt. He finished the Renaissance Club the week before the Genesis Scottish Open, finished T19, T32 at the US Open. Sam hasn't played a ton of golf, I guess, is one of the things that I see that jumps out at me. And so maybe that's why he's playing this week. Maybe he feels like, hey, I want to dial in, want to get back into playing tournament golf and just the process of playing tournament golf. And, is looking to play 4 weeks in a row now. That's something to consider. These guys that are playing this week, you're going to play, you want to play the next 3 weeks, all 3 weeks. So, Burns is sitting there at 20th saying, all right, well, I'm going to play for a month straight. And the numbers to me look pretty good. Lost strokes on approach at the Open and ball striking. So he just didn't hit it that great. After that, ball striking 5 straight in a row, gain strokes. Approach 4 out of the last 6 gain strokes. Putting 5 out of 5, gaining with the putter. I think the profile on Burns looks perfectly fine. And I think he has a ton of upside. He certainly has PGA Tour winning upside. I know it was the match play event, but he won at Austin Country Club at the Dell Match Play. And in that field, he beat Cam Young, Rory McIlroy. He beat some of the most elite players in the game. So I like Burns a good bit and maybe going a little bit under the radar. All right. No need to talk through every single team here. Just want to highlight how solid the lineup builder really is. Shout out all you guys in the chat. Let me circle back here. Hammer, what's going on? Lineup builder is a lifesaver. He says, yes, it is. Top lineup is sexy. I agree. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that top lineup this week. If I had to guess, somebody like JT Poston, who has been as hot as a firecracker, probably due for a little bit of a pullback, but I've become pretty loyal to JT Poston. I like everything about him. Liked his quote last week. We talked about that in the Monday show. Quoted that I'm out here to win golf tournaments. I still think if he knew that solo second would have guaranteed himself in that top 50 and all of the what will be signature events. That's right. Next season, we've called them elevated events. We've called them designated events. They have formally said that next season, all of these big events will be called signature events on the PGA Tour. So the top 50 and FedEx Cup points will be getting into automatic entry into those signature events. And I think Poston could have put himself in a position to do that. Still can with some good play. But I think it's pretty interesting to think about it that way. And then Henley and Siwoo Kim, definitely love the way that lineup pans out. PPE in the chat, as always, no sell. PPE says, yeah, I mean, I think it's always interesting to sell, but more fun to buy and play. PPE. So come sweat alongside us. Hammer says, I can't stomach the pack parties anymore. Even the Gateds have hundreds of playoff packs in the prize pool. Yeah, I think I did notice that these playoff events will have playoff packs in the prize pool. We'll talk through that. I'm gonna jump back to playoffs after we go through questions. But yeah, pack party, just not for me. Maybe it's just because I run so damn poor in pooling everything in packs, in pack parties. So just not for me right now. I think the portfolio that I have is quite solid, and I'll just take the chance that the lineup gives me a little bit of a sweat. I think I'm playing one pack party team this week, though. Now that I say that, let's see what did I put this lineup in? I have one other. Oh, nope. Look, I just fired into guaranteed cash. Kevin Roy, Carl Yuan, Dylan Fratelli. I mean, this is as crapshoot of a lineup as you can possibly build. Took my 2 playoff cards that I pulled. SH Kim, Christian Bezadenhout. Both these guys need really strong finishes this week in order to get into the playoffs. So, I just took them and put them into that team. I thought, get some utility out of it, and I'll sweat 3 lineups in the same contest. So to me, worth it to just play it in the guaranteed cash contest and see what happens. Stogie says, when optimizer, putting together all these lineups with all the dupes is tedious. Yeah, I could understand that. When optimizer, when answer. I don't have an answer to that. Next season, no idea. But certainly not coming before the 2023 calendar year is over. All right. A couple other questions and good ones that we had in our Discord. If you're not in our Discord, link is in the description below. Definitely join it. Ton of great Reignmakers conversation happening over there. I've noticed some of the PGA channel transitioning, talking a lot about the NFL. Reignmakers coming up. I think it's very fun in our Discord because we had a lot of people that really didn't play golf fantasy, and now everyone is into golf fantasy. It is just one of the best sweats that you can get. Shout out to Peter Overzet, and Brick75. Brian, I listen to the Laws podcast every week. Last week's show, Brick, who is generally pretty monotone and pretty low key. His voice sparked up when he started talking about PGA DFS, said it's definitely one of his favorite sports, likes golf in general, which makes it a little easier to sweat along with. But I think there's some of you out there that know how fun fantasy golf has become, who didn't play fantasy golf until Reignmakers. So yeah, I just think it's one of the best fantasy sports out there. It's only going to continue to get bigger, in my opinion. Golf is everywhere. YouTube golf is getting really popular. Everyone's buying clubs. Everyone's trying to get out on the course. So I really think golf is booming and will continue to boom. And man, if we could get a strong TV product for golf, I really do think that the TV product is such a challenge. The number of commercials, the missed shots. If we could just get a little bit stronger of a TV product for golf, we have the recipe on our hands to really, really boom. But, that's me just talking completely on a different subject. So for another podcast, for another day. All right, couple of questions in our Discord. If you're not in it, join it. Ton of great conversation happening over there. Shout out Barrick, state of the contest, always putting out information around the contest. As of 1:00 today, look like the guaranteed elite contest, $36 EV, probably the best contest out there. 29% in the money for that contest. The rare guaranteed 22% in the money percentage, 475 EV calculation there. Barrick always putting out the best spreadsheets in the game. So appreciate all the work that he does over there. Definitely jump on over there and check that out. But had a great question. Said, couldn't make the stream. Want to know your thoughts on playing your best cards in lineups together. Trying to find the exact question here. Where the heck did it go? I was going to here we go. Sports Freak. What's the strategy for using higher tier guys across multiple lineups? Say I can make 10 rares, saving the best guys for all captains, or focusing on 3 or 4 chalky best lineups. Seems like my min cash rate should be higher with some of the guys that I've been playing lately. Last week was pretty hard to judge. 5 of 5 or 6 of 6 rate was so low. Yeah, this is a great question. One, the min cashes in general in Reignmakers are small. 2, if you're playing for upside, if you're playing for chasing down top prizes, you need to put together lineups that have ceiling. In my opinion, I would much rather sweat 3 or 4 of the best lineups, even if they're chalky. As long as you have a 4th or a 5th golfer that is not at the top of the odds board, that gives you a little bit of differentiation, and you have a captain that performs well, even if that captain is chalky. I mean, the chalky captain on Reignmakers is like 6%, 7%, 8% at most, that from what I've seen. If you guys have seen more than that, let me know. Maybe in some of the gated contests, we see someone like a Scotty Scheffler be 10, 12, 13%. But in general, I would say captain percentages are so small in terms of ownership. So even if you get a guy like Scotty, 10% owned, you just need to get different in one spot, in my opinion. And I think building those lineups that have ceiling end up giving you, 1, a better projected outcome, 2, a better ceiling, and 3, a better sweating experience. To me, it's really hard to move up into the bigger prize pools and the bigger prize payouts. You need to be top 20 in elite. You need to be top 10 in rare if you want to score some of these bigger prizes. So you need to hit 3 or 4 guys in the top 10 with the appropriate captain in order to give yourself a proper sweat to take down the biggest prize pools on Reignmakers. So to me, I would just be playing the best guys together. I would be bundling all of those middling tier guys and even some of the lower tier guys into other lineups, similar to how I have done here. Kevin Roy, Carl Yuan, Dylan Fratelli, SH Kim, and C Bez. Sure, that lineup could min cash. If that lineup, if that goes 5 of 5, it's going to min cash. It's going to, now what's the chance that it goes 5 of 5? It's pretty small. It's more likely to go 1 of 5 or 2 of 5 than 5 of 5. And to me, that's okay. I play for the opportunity that it could go 5 of 5. And I just don't know that the decisions on the margin are worth not chasing down the upside that these tournaments present. So yeah, I would be playing 3 or 4 of your best teams and going from there. All right. I think that was the only question I really saw. Want to get into playoffs. I do want to mention and shout out Giant Hammer. I see him in the chat. We were talking about weekly leaderboards. I will say this: weekly leaderboards definitely one of my bigger flaws in terms of things that I miss for Rainmakers. I am very hesitant to try to check the weekly leaderboards, mostly because it's hard to follow. It's hard to understand. I don't know the exact calculation. I play it as sort of a secondary outcome that if it works out for me and I get some money from being on the weekly leaderboard, fantastic. I do think there's edges to be had there. So definitely keep an eye on that. So take my playoff thoughts with a grain of salt, knowing that um, in general, I haven't really taken that into consideration. Okay, let's go to a different window that I'm going to share. And I'm interested in your guys' thoughts here. Can you see this? Let's zoom in. Okay, here we go. All right. So what I just took the rare low asks here, just so everyone's aware. Took the rare low asks. If you're playing these playoff contests, they are rare contests. You can enter with 5 rare cards. You don't need an elite card. You don't need a legendary card. So to me, unless you're playing at the elite tier or you're playing at the legendary tier, I would simply be liquidating those cards. I would simply be liquidating, even if you love the golfer. Now, unless you got a Scotty or a Rom or a Rory, and even if you do, I still might liquidate. I still might liquidate just to give yourself other options and to look at if I could pick up a rare ROM and then essentially pick up other assets to solidify my position and give myself more opportunities, more lineups in these contests that are coming up. So, my breakdown is this: one, you're likely to need a one of or multiple of a Rom, Scheffler, or McIlroy. If you had to pick, and I did this a couple of hours ago, so the pricing may be different now. I noticed that people are out there buying, so low asks may be changing. To me, it's hard to fade Scotty. It's just really hard to fade Scotty. Um, I might go with the low ask, quite frankly, amongst these 3. I think all 3 of these guys could win the FedEx Cup. I think all 3 of them will play well. Rory won this thing last year. Rom sits in first. So I think all 3 are fairly good. They will be in a ton of lineups. You probably will need them. Actually, in the first event, it may benefit you to fade these guys because of how owned they will be. So I do think it's going to be very interesting to see this first week of playoff contests pan out. But if you're someone out there that rips some packs like me, who maybe got a couple of guys that were solid, and you definitely want to have lineups in these contests, you're going to need to make some marketplace purchases. So I went through this, pulled the low asks, and quite frankly, I think it's quite indicative of a non-efficient market. Someone like Brian Harman should not be worth $19. Justin Thomas might not play the playoffs, and he's worth 10. And you could liquidate for an offer, I think at like $9 or $8. Top offer on Harman, I think, was like $13. So I just think you can make some really strategic buys here to, at a minimum, give yourself strong utility and strong opportunity to sweat what appears to be some of the best contests on DraftKings. Brian Harman just won the Open Championship. Can he win the FedEx Cup? Absolutely. In my opinion, he can absolutely win the FedEx Cup. So I think it's one of these kind of contests where give yourself a shot and see where the chips fall. Try to spend within your budget, try to play within your means, but give yourselves a lineup in these contests, mostly for the fun, for the sweat. It's going to be very fun contests with a ton of big prizes at the top of the board. So yeah, I told myself I was going to get in these. I ripped 2 of what would be pretty poor packs. From a pack, I got Max Homa and I got a Matt Fitzpatrick. Those were literally the top 2 guys that I had so many guys down here in this like 85 to 109 range. If I had anybody from 80. Justin Thomas was kind of my guy, right? I'm selling Justin Thomas. I've already said that. If I have any of these guys from 80 on down, Justin Thomas, Adam Scott, I'm just selling. I'm just selling these guys. I'm just trying to liquidate, take a top offer, and then maybe flip it into, turn in 2 or 3 golfers into, somebody that's going to give you utility. Let's look at the pricing up here. I mean, a guy like Eric Cole, he's played fantastic all season. 40th. He's going to get into at least one, probably 2 events. He's $8. Patrick Rogers. I've loved Patrick Rogers. He will be a purchase for me. $5.99, rank 38. He's going to get into 2 events probably. So to me, I just think there's way better ways to spend money in terms of the low ask on these guys. And can a lineup with Patrick Rogers next week win? Absolutely. I don't see a reason why it can't. While these are going to be strong fields, there's going to be no cuts, and you're going to need to make a lot of birdies. And all of these guys, there's just not that much of a difference from Max Homa, down to top 30 guys, down to Corey Connors. There's not that much of a difference in terms of, Sahith Theegala all the way down to, JT Poston. You can get outcomes that are quite elite from these guys, and I think there's a lot of pricing disparity in the playoffs. So I'm interested. What do you guys think? Who do you guys like in this top section? I highlighted the guys I like and then purchased in green. Like I said, I had a Homa, so I just highlighted a Homa. I was actually kind of tempted. My thought was, should I sell Homa for somewhere around 40 and then reinvest some of those profits into a couple of other guys? I think it's very interesting. For now, I've held on to them. But those are the decisions that I'm making. Where can I make a swap for 2 or 3 of these golfers that likely might not even play, to one of the golfers that's going to give me utility for the next 3 weeks? Couple of guys I liked. Brian Harman, instantly bought. $20 was an instant purchase. Tyrrell Hatton was an instant purchase. $22. I think Tyrrell Hatton, if he plays well the first 2 playoff events, has a great chance to win the FedEx Cup playoffs. Emiliano Grillo has played great, has done nothing but play great over the course of the last month. Tommy Fleetwood has played great. Again, $19 for someone like Tommy Fleetwood. Now, I will say, got down to Tommy Fleetwood at $19, and this felt like a pretty efficient price, but I needed someone in this top 20 who I felt had pedigree and upside. And yes, Tommy Fleetwood has not won on the PGA Tour. We just saw him play really well at the Open. He's played really great golf over the course of the last month. I love Tommy's recent form. So he was one that I picked up. A couple other guys that I thought about. I've talked about on the show. Taylor Moore, $12. Not sure that there's a better buy out there for $12 than Taylor Moore. Corey Connors, we've talked about him all year long. One of TJ's favorite plays all season long, $13. Matt Fitzpatrick, I owned him from a pack, $13. Now, my thought here was, should I be taking a $10 offer on Matt Fitzpatrick and maybe getting a Taylor Moore at $12? Maybe trying to say, hey, I need to make one of these big purchases. If I'm going to need to buy a Rahm, a Scheffler, a Rory, you're going to need to invest 70, 80, 90 bucks in a captain, right? So in some way, shape, or form, I'm kind of thinking, all right, let's see how this week pans out. Let's make a few key purchases here in the course of the next couple of days. And these prices, in my opinion, are likely to rise. We know in Reignmakers, if you can be a week or 2 ahead, you're going to pan out better than most. Not many people probably thinking about the playoffs right now. If you think people are thinking about the playoffs, go over and do some drafts and see how people are drafting. People are still drafting Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas needs to beat 120 golfers this week in order to get into the playoffs. He hasn't beaten 120 golfers basically all season long. It just doesn't really make much sense to me. So I think the inefficiency in pricing makes for a very interesting event, makes for some very interesting buying opportunities and decisions. So yeah, those are a couple of the guys that I like. Interested to see what you guys have been doing. Put it in the Discord, ask questions. I think now is the time to make moves. These packs just sold out overnight last night. There are going to be some really fun contests, in my opinion. And yeah, I think you're going to want to have at least one team that has some significant upside, some significant ceiling in this first or second playoff event. So look for these guys in the top 30 or in the top 40 that are pretty much locked into playing two events. It's just the standings aren't going to move all that much in 2 weeks time. So yeah, I think there's opportunities out there. I think I think somebody that makes some strategic buys has a solid opportunity to play well and land a massive prize in these playoff contests. One thing I will say, there's going to be overlap. There's going to be duplicated lineups. I have been spending an extra dollar or two when it comes to the low ask at buying something like going from a 300 serial to a 100 serial. I'm willing to spend an extra dollar or two. Now, I don't have a elite or legendary or rainmaker card. So if you have one of those, you're going to have a better serial than most everybody, in my opinion. You're going to be able to put together a pretty low serial count, and that's okay. I'm probably going to have to build an all rare team that has at least one or two guys that are quote unquote flyers in the next couple of weeks. But that's okay. I think that is perfectly fine. We see guys priced in DraftKings DFS in the 7,000s at the top of the board and the optimal lineup a lot, week over week, year over year. So to me, it is about trying to find the guys that have the ceiling, that are playing well, that give you an opportunity at the beginning of the contest in order to take down some of those top prizing. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Caden says, okay, question. I pulled JT from playoff pack. Should I sell for other players? Thoughts? Yes, I would instantly be selling. I looked at this previous. Let me pull it up. For some reason, I don't know if you guys have this issue, but for some reason on Chrome, I can't always get the marketplace to work well on Chrome. So I have to go over to Edge and get it to work. But let's just see. I believe JT was $10 whenever I first filled out this form, and his offer was $8. He's 1049. His top offer is $6. Like I said, JT needs to beat 120 golfers this week in order for him to even play next week. Now, could he beat 120 golfers? Sure, absolutely. Does he have one of the most elite skill sets in golf? Sure. Is he playing anywhere near the top of his game? Absolutely not. Probably has his like C minus, D plus game at best as of now. Is he going to be able to just wake up tomorrow and shoot 8 under? Sure, anybody could, but I'm not counting on it. And to me, if JT shoots like 1 under tomorrow, 2 under, and he's T60, T70, I think there's going to be people selling, in my opinion. I just think that there's the more likely outcome that he finishes outside the top 20 than an outcome of inside the top 20 and gets into the playoffs. So, I'd be selling. I'd take that $10, $8 of an offer, and just looking at this sheet for $6, who can you get? First person, that's $6. Sahith is $10. So you need to add $4 for a Sahith. Lee Hodges is 34th. He's $6. I mean, Lee Hodges is going to play 2 playoff events. He's going to be in 2 lineups for you. Now, you're going to need to spend some more money. You're going to need to, round out a lineup that has Lee Hodges in it, but you're going to get guaranteed utility out of the Lee Hodges card for $6. You are praying that JT plays, and you could, at the simple click of a button, sell JT and pick up a Lee Hodges. Do I think there's some better buys out there? Yeah, probably. Who would I be looking at? Brandon Wu, $3. Pretty interesting. Keith Mitchell withdrew, but played pretty well for $4. I think if I were buying, I would be trying to buy in this like 50 to 20 range. Rank 50 to 20. You're going to give yourself the best chance and the best opportunity for 2 weeks of utility. And I think that's what you're trying to get out of the playoff contest. You're trying to get 2 weeks of utility, and you're going to make some strategic buys over the course of the next 2 weeks in order to give yourself a lineup in that tour championship with 50 grand to first place. Yes, you will be playing against lineups of Rahm, Scotty, Rory, Cantlay, Xander. You certainly will be. But can you beat that lineup with another lineup of Harman, Fleetwood, Rory, Rahm, Cantlay? You absolutely could. So, yeah, I think there's definitely disparity in pricing, which creates opportunity for us to give ourselves a chance to take home one of these big prizes. All right, tons more playoff talk over the course of the next couple of weeks. Make some buys now, in my opinion. Make some sales now, in my opinion. I mean, these guys that are worth $2, I think, in my opinion, I would just be taking my $2. I've already taken my $2 on Mav McNeely. On who else did I sell? Can't even remember who else. I think it might have been a Matt Wallace, Mav McNeely. I mean, an Adam Scott. I would be certainly selling an Adam Scott. Adam Scott has 2 top 10s all season long. He needs to win. I think he needs probably a top 5, top 10 in order to just give himself a chance to get into the playoffs. He's worth $12. I would be selling Adam Scott right away. Instant sale. You can turn them into 2 $6 cards that are going to guarantee play at least one, if not 2 events. Just doesn't really make much sense to me. So, yeah, I think people just don't know some of the nuances that some of these guys are not going to play. And if you have a stand, right? Here's an interesting one. If you have a stand on some of these guys, like a Garrick Higo, $2.40, like a Ben Taylor, $1.99, like a Cam Davis, $4. $4 is a little bit harder. But like if Ben Taylor goes out and finishes top 10, I'm not even confident. Is Ben Taylor in the field this week? Someone in chat tell me if Ben Taylor is in the field this week. I know Higo is in the field this week, so let's use Higo. If Higo goes out, finishes top 10, gets in the playoff, that $2.40 is going to go up. He's going to be able to be bought, able to be played in these contests where a lot of these guys, are not going to be. They're going to instantly be, guys you're looking to play in the fall swing or guys you're looking to play in 2024. They are no longer going to be in this playoff set. So, yeah, to me, some of these decisions are pretty easy. I did not have a JT or an Adam Scott, but those 2 stuck out to me. I would certainly be selling them. All the guys in red, worth noting, they either don't have a playoff card or they aren't in Reignmakers. So no playoff cards, obviously, for Spieth or Rose or Ricky. But then we come down like Ben Griffin. They didn't include Davis Thompson. They didn't include Streelman's not in the playoff set. Baddeley's not in the playoff set. So some of these guys that are in that top 100 aren't in the playoff set. So yeah, take a look at where guys stand. I think pretty hard for some of these guys, Lauer, Tyson Alexander, Mav McNeely, Grayson Sig. Even if they win, they might not rise 30 spots. Like, these guys got to go up 30 spots in order to get in. So you're just counting on a lot. It just seems like easier to just lock in the utility. Caden says, sweet, really appreciate the input. Love this community. Love you too, man. Love all the listeners out there. You guys make the show. Appreciate all the thoughts, all the questions. I think that's going to do it for me this week. You know what I owe you guys? I see TJ in chat. TJ, are you alive? We need a TJ Lasik winner pick for this week. We didn't give it to the people on Monday, and it's Wednesday. I didn't ask for it, which was my fault. So I apologize to all of you out there in the community. We did not get a TJ winner pick. If we do not get one in the next 30 seconds while I stall here before I end the show, we will have TJ post his winner pick in the Discord before the tournament locks. Get your lineups in. Wyndham Championship. Put up or shut up time. It's going to be a fun week. This is always a pretty fun tournament. Last week was really fun at the 3M. This week, I think we see less chaos, but I think it will be a all business kind of week with the playoffs upon us. While it's a middling field, there's a couple of guys with big names that need to play well, that really, really need to play well. So should be quite fun. Best of luck. We're not going to get a TJ call, it doesn't seem like. So look for that in the Discord. And we will be back next week on Monday. Everything is heating up. It's August. The NFL is here. Huge week next week. Massive week. town hall talking all things football next week for everyone in the OTM Jolly Joker community. So Tuesday, 4 p.m., block the calendars, be there. We'll be promoting it all weekend, all week, early next week. But yeah, it should be a really fun time. Football's here. Golf will continue. Football's here. All good stuff. All right. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the thoughts. Thanks to all of you out there that listen to the show. I'm Coop. TJ and I will be back next week. Talk to you all then.